sometimes instead of studying for finals, you just have to put on absolutely no makeup except for some really bright, obnoxious lipstick, and then film a video instead of doing any other priorities in life that you have, because that's life sometimes. Y'all, I need to do something with my hair. I have like a helmet of hair on my head. I have like the combination of an emo Karen Justin Bieber haircut. That is literally what is going on. I have maybe 1.25 of an eye. Do I have eyebrows? Who knows? Do I have a forehead? Absolutely not. That is interesting. I have to do something about that. Hello, my name is Elise, and it's wrap-up time once again. This is my, I don't even remember, my April wrap-up, right? Is that the 4th month? May, June, January, February, March, April. Okay, yeah, this is my April wrap-up, and I read 8 books in that month. I did struggle to read. I had a whole TBR planned, as per usual. I neglected it. I ended up rereading a lot of middle grade books from my childhood, which I honestly don't usually do. I don't read too many middle grade books, but every time I do read them, I end up really loving them, and it was fun to reread them. So yeah, I mean, once again, as I say every single month, I might not have read as much as I wanted to, but it was still a good month. Did I check out all of the books I read from the library instead of reading any of the ARCs I have from NetGalley that are just accumulating, or any of the books behind me? No, but I read. That's a good thing, right? So I'm gonna get straight into it. Again, as per usual, there seems to be common themes in my wrap-up videos, but my last book that I'm gonna mention may or may not have been read technically this month in May. That's the month we're in, right? Yeah, in May, but I was mentally in April when I read the book, and I started it in April, so I'm including it in this video, and we're all just gonna pretend I read it in April because I don't want to talk about it in my May wrap-up because I'll forget about it by then, and it was a really good book. So yeah, let's get started. Off to book number 1. So the first book that I read in April was Anger is a Gift, and I will just start off by saying this book took me a lot longer to read than YA contemporaries usually take me to read. Probably took me a week or a bit over a week, and this was after I was consistently listening to the audiobook. Sometimes if it takes me that long to read a book, it's more like I read 20 pages the first day, forgot about it for a week, and then finished it all in a day. But like, I was consistently reading this book over however many days I was reading it. And again, it was an audiobook. But this was a very heavy book. If you have not heard of Anger is a Gift, it's about a boy. His name is Moss. He's in high school, and his father had been killed by a police officer. So he is affected by this police brutality, and in a way, he's almost like a celebrity when it comes to protesting. Like, people will recognize him on the street, and this is very traumatic for Moss, and he develops some very serious panic attacks. So he's struggling with that, but then there's this other element that is added to his life where his high school starts implementing all of these security measures, like random locker checks or requiring all the kids to go through a metal detector before entering the school. And this just adds on to the trauma, really makes things difficult, and it's just incredibly unjust. Unjust. There we go. Is that the word? Unjust? Unjust? Unjust, right? Yeah, okay. I was sounding all profound at first, and now I'm struggling with English vocabulary. But yeah, this is certainly not a lighthearted book. If you can imagine, I mean, it's about police brutality and racism and pretty much brutality against students, because there are some very serious measures taken against these students, and kids get hurt. I don't want to spoil things, but things get very intense in this book, and it's incredibly frustrating. So if you're not ready for some really heavy young adult books, this is not the book for you right now. There were quite a few times where I was ready to put it down, not because it was bad, but because it was just so much and I needed a break from it. But it was beautifully written, the writing style, not the events in the book. Those were very sad. But I would absolutely recommend this book if you like very hard-hitting real books that are geared towards a young adult audience but could be suitable for an older audience. I honestly started reading this book without really knowing what it was about. I was more drawn in by the title, Anger is a Gift, because the emotion of anger is something that I'm really interested in, because I feel like there's no social change that has taken place without anger, and often anger is seen as some very negative emotion that you're supposed to control or not even have, and I feel like it's disproportionately used against people of color and other marginalized groups as some bad thing. Like, you're an angry group, we have to disregard you until you can control your feelings. And this book really explores what it means to be angry and what you can do with that anger and how you can process it, and how it's just a very human emotion that can be used as either a weapon or as something to change the structures in our society. So if you are looking for a book that has lots of layers to it and that you can really just extrapolate from, this is such a wonderful book. I am going to link my review down below, because as I'm blabbing, and I did read this like a month ago, I can't remember every single trigger warning, but I did write them out as I was going in my review. So if you're interested in this book, I would check that out first, because there is a lot going on. But yeah, otherwise it was 4.5 stars for me. The only thing I didn't like was that it was so hard-hitting. I almost wanted just a couple more glimpses of happiness in this book. It was also an LGBT book. The main character is gay, I think that's how he identifies, and I just wanted to see a bit more happiness in it. I know that's not always 100% realistic, and it's very valid to be very sad and to be suffering for a very long period of time, but I just think it would have been a benefit to readers if they could see a bit more of the positive side of life. But yeah, that was just a minor detail from me that I would have preferred. The next book I read was Orbiting Jupiter, and this book kind of is the branch between middle grade and young adult, because the characters, I can't remember their exact ages, but yeah, it was right on the cusp of both middle grade and young adult, and honestly I think it would be suitable for either audience. But it's about a boy, he's younger than the side character. I think his name is Jack. Oh my goodness, I'm forgetting. I should have been more prepared. But he is in grade school, and then his life kind of changes when his family takes in a foster kid named Joseph. And Joseph was, oh my gosh, I can't remember. I think he like almost killed his teacher or something where no one else wanted to take him in. So people are kind of like, let's stay away from Joseph, and by association, let's stay away from Jack, because this could not be good, right? And Joseph is very distant. He also has a child, even though he himself is a child. So there's a lot that's going on, a lot that he's processing. And Jack, the main character, is kind of watching this go by, and he's also trying to process what's going on and his feelings towards his foster brother. I don't know what I was expecting from this book. I thought it was just like purely a middle grade book, and I'm always like wrongly assuming that middle grade means that it will be lighter, but this was also a very, very heavy book, and it made me tear up a bit. Like, this was a sad book, y'all. Especially at the end, it just got sadder and sadder, and at the end I was actually a little sad that it was so short, because there was so much sadness and then it ended. But yeah, if you like contemporary books that are very sad, I would also recommend this one, because it's the same thing, really great exploration of dynamics between two people, but also just immensely sad. And even though the ending wasn't my favorite, it was still just an emotion, the whole book. It was really well done. I think I only read sad books this month for the most part, but my third book was Bridge to Terabithia, which is a middle grade book that I cannot remember if I actually read when I was a kid, but I definitely watched the movie and loved it. It has Josh Hutcherson in it. Is that his name? I can't even remember. Yeah, the dude who plays PETA in the Hunger Games. So like, that's why I was like, this is so cool, whatever, when I was a kid. But I wanted to reread it just to see if I still liked it. And if you haven't heard of this book, it's basically about a boy and girl. They become friends. The girl, whose name is escaping me, I'm really bad with names, sorry, but she's like the outsider, outcast kind of girl who doesn't really follow the norms of this rather small conservative town or whatever. But yeah, they befriend each other and they have little adventures and they create like a little fantasy land together. And it's a really sweet exploration of childhood friendships, but it's just also so sad. I don't want to spoil the book if you haven't heard of it. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be familiar with Bridge to Terabithia, but the ending is really sad and I was having a hard time. But surprisingly, I actually didn't like the book as much as I thought I would. This is one of the rare instances where I think I actually liked the movie more than the book, but I do have to rewatch the movie to confirm that. But something about the book was, I don't know, a little hard to relate to the characters and the scenes in the book. In the movie, if I remember correctly, the fantasy element of this fictitious land that the two characters create was much more prominent, and I thought it was harder to visualize in the book, and it just wasn't described as much. And there are also some subtle, weird religious themes that I don't know if I was entirely enjoying. I kind of want to say it, but like also it's a spoiler. But pretty much one of the characters says like this character, the outsider girl, doesn't follow the rules, God's gonna send her to hell. Yeah, and then something bad does happen to her. So yeah, I don't know if I was vibing with that, but it was a sweet book. It was still enjoyable, but just not something I fell in love with the way I was expecting to based off of my childhood memories of it. So just to completely change things up, except this book is kind of sad too in a way, but I read A Dowry of Blood, and this is not a book I would usually read. I got an ARC through NetGalley, and I do not read paranormal books or horror for that matter. I don't know why I requested it. The main reason really was because I kept seeing people talk about it on Twitter, and every time someone talks about something on Twitter, I'm like, I want to know, I want to read that too, even if I just know in my head it's something I'll never ever enjoy. But I requested it anyways, and NetGalley accepted me, and then it was just sitting on my Kindle, so I had to read it. And for some reason, I absolutely loved it. It is a Dracula retelling, and the Dracula dude in the book has a wife that he makes into a vampire, and then he brings in another wife that is vampire-y, and then there's like obsession and jealousy and complex emotions and all of that good stuff. But yeah, I've like not read a vampire book, I think. Once upon a time I read, I think it's a middle grade book, 8th Grade Bites or something like that. I read that a couple years ago, and I think that was pretty much the only vampire book I've read. I've read books that have involved vampires but no vampire main characters, so this was a first for me, and I really wasn't expecting to like it. And at the beginning I was not liking it. I mean, like, I'm not really big on blood, not gonna lie, so when I was reading very vivid descriptions of people's mouths being filled with blood, I wasn't enjoying it. But as I kept reading, I got used to it, and it was so good. I don't know how this author managed to convert me to vampire books, but yeah, if I'm saying a vampire book is good, y'all should go read it, because this is a rare occurrence. And yeah, the writing was so fantastic. I have not read writing that was so gorgeous and complex and emotional like this in such a long time. And maybe it's because for the first half of the month I'd only been reading YA and middle grade. This was such a shift, but it was a great shift, and I had a good time towards the end. Definitely not the lightest of books, as all of these books have been, but highly recommend this one. I can't believe I'm saying this, but yeah, go read it. And then we're back to the middle grade books. The next book is Holes, and if you've either read this book or watched the movie, I love this book / movie so much. I read the book a million years ago, and I decided to reread it because this was another book where I was like, I remember loving this, but did I just love it because it was one of the only books I remember from a kid, or when I was a kid? So yeah, but turns out it was fantastic still. If you haven't heard of it, it's about a boy. His name is Stanley, right? Oh my gosh, again, me and the names, that we don't go well together. Yeah, Stanley, he's accused of stealing these shoes from a homeless center that were going to be raffled off or something like that. And he's innocent, but whatever, it doesn't look like he's innocent. So he gets sent to this juvenile detention center. And the thing about this center is every day you have to dig these really deep holes in the like scorching heat. So yeah, that is a thing that happens. But then there's some more mystery elements going on about the true intentions of this detention center. So yeah, it ended up being as good as I remembered it. And the mystery element of the book, well, I think it was predictable, but I'm also bad at predicting things and I probably just remembered it. But even though it was pretty simple and you could guess pretty early on what was going on, it was just so fun, and the characters are so fun, and I love the narration, and yeah, everything was wonderful. If you read this book once upon a time ago when you were a kid, sorry for the motorcycles in the background, but yeah, if you read it a long time ago, I encourage you to reread because it was a fun time. And wow, the motorcycles are loud. Okay, we're just gonna ignore that. But yeah, it was great. I can't wait to watch the movie again. I have to find the movie somewhere. But yeah, if you haven't read that one, or if you haven't read it in a while, go read Holes. My next book was read for my book club, Rewind Book Club. I'm gonna plug my book club once again. It's Rewind Book Club. We read books from the early 2010s that were popular around that time. They didn't have to be published at the time, but just, popular. Like the whole Divergent, Hunger Games, Fault in Our Stars, that era. If you haven't heard me mention that yet, I have all my links down below. It's like my little baby project, and I love it dearly. So stop by my Twitter for the book club. It's Rewind Twitter. It's a Rewind Book Club. There we go. And yeah, I would be very happy. But the book that we read for April was Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda. I have read this book before. I read it once upon a time ago, a million years ago, but by a million years, I mean like 2015 or 2016. I don't remember. But when I read it, I gave it 5 stars. It was literally one of my favorite books ever. I would recommend it to anyone who asked for a book rec. I remember reading it all in one night on my phone. I was having a good time. I really liked it. So I was expecting to love it again because, I didn't read it that long ago. It was like, 5 years ago? But yeah, I did not like it as much the second time. The second time around, I gave it 3 stars, and I don't know, it just did not live up to my memories. It's about a kid who is closeted, and he sends emails to another closeted kid, and then stuff goes down. But I don't know, I read a lot of young adult fiction, especially young adult fiction that takes place in a high school setting, and they can be very hit or miss. Sometimes it feels relatable, and I enjoy that. Sometimes it feels like an older author trying to be a high schooler, and I don't like that as much. The characters in these books, or the characters in this book, were pretty unlikable, and the writing was a bit ridiculous. There was so many pop culture references, and I'm like 20. I was basically the correct age that the characters were when this book was published, but I still did not understand like half of the references, and also half the references were like Harry Potter references, so I did not understand that either. We have lots of motorcycles today, but yeah, it was kind of cringy in a way. I don't like using that word to describe people's writing, but it just, I don't know, I didn't like it. And there was a Tumblr page that kept getting referenced in the book, and it kept being referred to as the Tumblr. Like, it sounded so weird. It was like, did you check the Tumblr today? Instead of just saying Tumblr. I don't know. It was like a minor detail, but it really bothered me. But the second half of the book was great. I liked the ending part, but the whole beginning half and middle was not my favorite. And I didn't like the characters, and I'm not a big fan of the whole outing the gay kid to the whole school. Is that a spoiler? Uh-oh. Well, don't they kind of mention that in the trailer? I'm just gonna leave it be, okay? If that's a spoiler, I'm sorry. I try to keep this channel spoiler free, but like, whatever. Maybe that's important for you to know. I feel bad now. Okay, we're moving on. But yeah, I'm not a fan of that. And yeah, I just was a little disappointed, but it was still kind of enjoyable. But if you haven't read it yet and you're like, should I read it? Maybe not. There are better queer books out there, and yeah, this was just pretty mediocre. I think it was almost revolutionary at the time, but yeah. Okay, did I just smear my lipstick by getting too excited? Oh my gosh, I did. It's okay, I'll just stand back so you can't see. But this next book, I am so excited to talk about. It's one of those books where I'm like so excited that I don't write the review for it because I just have so much to say, and then by the time I actually try to write the review, I've forgotten everything. So that sucks. But I got an arc of If This Gets Out, and I am so excited for this book. It is a book, well, I mean, I already read it, but I'm so excited for its official release. But it's a book about a boy band, and two of the members are in a relationship, but the company, the label, the whatever it's called, I don't know what it's called. I read the whole book too. But anyways, they're not allowed to come out. It has to be a secret. It's very controlling and manipulative. And it just reminded me of, you know, things I ran into in my childhood with my interests, especially because I loved music / still love music. But yeah, I'm not gonna say too much about it because it's still way too long until it's published. I think it's not going to be published till like December or January or something. And if you've made it this far into my wrap up, let me know if you want me to do a whole booktube review, because I think that's something I'm going to be doing no matter what. But it's just everything I probably would have wanted in a book. It does read kind of like fan fiction, so if that bothers you, it does read like fan fiction, but I thought it worked really well with the book, and it's also written by two different authors, but yeah, it worked well. Usually I don't like books that have multiple point of views, especially multiple point of views by different authors, but I just felt like it worked really well, and I'm just gonna be really excited when I actually have the opportunity to do a whole review on this, because I think it's a little too early now, but if anyone's read it, come scream in my DMs, because yeah, it was like an automatic 5 stars for me. I really had a great time. I know there will be some people, maybe a lot of people, that this won't be their cup of tea, but I had a great time, okay? I had a wonderful time reading this. I really did. It was very fun. And then the very last book that I read was Summer Bird Blue, and I read this for the Ace Readathon. This is about a girl who is pretty much best friends with her younger sister, but then a very tragic event happens. There's a car crash and her sister dies, but she survives, and so does her mother. Now, the mom does not take this very well, and she ends up sending the main character, Rumi, off to Hawaii to live with her aunt that she doesn't know very well. And Rumi is very angry about this, 1, because her sister just died, and 2, she's being sent away to a place she doesn't know well at all to grieve by herself. I have many thoughts on this book. First of all, it was a little hard to get into. I started reading it many months ago and then put it down, and then tried to read it again this month, and started off with the audiobook and then transitioned to the book. But it's kind of a slow beginning, but otherwise this book explores feelings that I really enjoy reading about. The main character is incredibly angry, rightfully so, but the way she deals with grief is kind of makes her unlikable. And again, as a reader, you understand her perspective, you understand why she's angry because you hear her thoughts and you know what she's experienced. But, you know, just like the way she treats people and the way she takes everything out on the world is just kind of unkind at points, and it's just, again, not very likable. But I think that's why I loved this book so much. I really enjoy books that explore the emotion of anger, and I know I've already covered that in this video, but I just think it's such a powerful emotion that you can do so much with. And I feel like I really related to the main character, Rumi, because I've definitely felt angry before in my life, and I would not say that I always deal with it in the most kind, subtle way. So I really related to Rumi's rather aggressive, sometimes mean ways of handling things, and I just thought it was such a beautiful, powerful book. And especially towards the end, there are quite a few scenes that really got to me. So if you like quieter books, this is for you. If you're not someone who likes quiet books that are heavily character and emotion driven, you'll probably find it pretty boring because there's almost no plot. It's pretty much entirely centered around emotional development. So if you don't like that, I would not read this book. But otherwise, if you do like explorations of emotion and character dynamics, 100% recommend this. I loved it so much. It has asexual representation too, and the word asexual is written right there on the page, which was wonderful. So yeah, that was a really great book to end my month on, even though I technically finished it in May, but I ended the month on it, okay? We're just gonna say that. And that is it for my for my April wrap up. Wow. According to my camera, I blabbed for a really long time. See, this is what I do when I have actual things to do, like study for finals, because I literally have 2 exams tomorrow that, yeah, I have not touched yet. But, you know, like, why not just stand in front of my camera and talk, you know? Good vibes here. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books, especially if this gets out, or Summerbird Blue, or if Anger is a Gift. No, Anger is a Gift. Yeah, because I really enjoyed those ones from this month. But yeah, see you next video. Bye bye. And if you've read this book or read the movie, if